What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and we want to go ahead and recap the New York Giants 2023 draft, taking a look at some of these videos that the Giants recently posted with Giants Life, showing really what went on in the draft room. Joe Schoen, his strategy, particularly on days 2 and 3, because the Giants, we know, not just the first round did they crush by drafting Deonte Banks, but round 2, they got John Michael Schmitz. Round 3, Jalen Hyatt. By all accounts, phenomenal first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. And if you even extend it to the 4th round, I really like the selection of Eric Gray. I think that the Giants did a phenomenal job in those middle rounds this year, finding talent. And they really did show a lot in these videos of how they were able to acquire that talent, what the process was like in that draft room. And it was very interesting. And there's a lot to take away from it, in particular, the fact that the Giants, you could really see their process and who they were targeting each day and who they wanted and how they got kind of lucky in some respects, but also did a very good job of keeping their secrets. So we're going to go ahead, dive into all that, react to it, and kind of discuss how the Giants went about their second and third day of the 2023 NFL Draft. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the middle rounds of the New York Giants draft?
Well, I'm always happy to talk about Giants' successful draft selections, and I'll tell you what, walking away with JMS and Jalen Hyatt, I think we can all agree was an absolute miracle, and it was an absolute steal because even the Giants, now learning about what the insider kind of talks were in the narrative going into this, was they thought that they weren't going to get Jalen Hyatt in the second round, let alone the third round. They were sitting there in the second round thinking, and literally Brian Dable says, one guy's got speed, one guy, is a starting center immediately. Whichever one the Bears are going to take, because the Bears ended up moving up one spot ahead of them. We've seen them do that in the past. They got Leonard Floyd a couple years back. And this time around, they were like, the Giants were convinced they're going with Hyatt or they're going to be going with JMS. Obviously, they're going with Stevenson, the cornerback. And you could see Joe Schoen's face light up. He was like, oh my God, like this is great. Like they didn't go after either guy. So now we get to pick which one is higher on our board, which obviously was John Michael Schmitz. But the crazy thing about it is the Giants clearly, and the thing was, you look back at the days when Dave Gettleman's here, and they get leapfrogged for Leonard Floyd, they get leapfrogged for Devonta Smith. All these things are happening, and what you love to see about this regimen is that they're not giving away secrets. They're not letting anybody know what their plan is. They're not letting anyone know what they're going to do. The fans didn't know, and other teams surely didn't know because the Bears went up and took an entirely different player. This was not a Leonard Floyd situation. The Bears went up and were like, we're going after a cornerback. We're not even going to be going there. So they had to think that maybe I guess whatever team was trading out of that pick was going to move it to another selection, or the Giants were going to go after Stevenson. So they didn't want to take the risk, and obviously the Giants end up winning out because they got both of their players. Either of them they would have been happy taking in the second round. Of course, Jalen Hyatt going in the third round is just that much more value. You get speed, and Brian Dable, that was the word he used, and I want to talk about that. He said, we get speed or we get JMS. So the variable of note here is the athleticism and absolute velocity that Jalen Hyatt brings to this offense, and I think it's a clear variable that the Giants were trying to improve upon this offseason. They wanted to improve the athleticism on this team. They wanted to improve the speed on this team, and now you're seeing the results of that. You're seeing the Hyatts of the world. You're seeing bringing back Darius Slayton. You're seeing bringing back a legitimate athletic tight end in Darren Waller. You have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's not, I wouldn't say speedy, but he's more agile. And of course, you have some really good players elsewhere. We got one more really fast guy. We got, Ford Wheaton, who has ridiculous speed. And then, of course, at the cornerback position, you go get a guy with 4.35 speed in Deonte Banks. So across the roster, Giants really focused in on that variable. Jalen Hyatt, what are your thoughts about that? The fact that they were sitting there in the second round, they were looking at speed or JMS. They ended up getting both, but it kind of gives you an idea of what their strategy was and how well it ended up falling to them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know that the Giants did their due diligence on the wide receiver class going into this draft, right? They had dinner with Hyatt, they had dinner with Flowers, dinner with Addison, Quentin Johnson they looked at as well. They really wanted one of these top wide receivers, and clearly they held Hyatt in that regard, in that same class, in that same tier group with those other wide receiver prospects, because when they were in round 2, they were hoping and praying that Hyatt would fall to them. I mean, keep in mind, guys, Jalen Hyatt is a prospect who many analysts had going in the first round. He fell all the way to the third. The Giants were really lucky for that. They got aggressive, they traded up, made sure to land him, but they were more than comfortable taking him with the 57th overall pick. And honestly, if the Giants did take Hyatt at 57, we all would have been happy with it. We all would have been thrilled anyway. But getting him in the third just made it all that much sweeter. But my favorite quote from that whole debacle there with landing Hyatt so late and getting John Michael Schmitz in the second round came from Brian Dable. He said, after the Bears traded up and presumably looked like they were going to take John Michael Schmitz from the Giants, Dable said, then we're taking Hyatt. We're getting one of the two, so F it. Either way, it will help us. One is fast, and the other will start at center. It's all good. And end that quote there, but what I really love about that is it kind of shows you that the whole, well, the guy has to earn his spot, coach speak narrative, it's so fake. John Michael Schmitz is your starting center. Pretty much confirmed before he was even on the roster officially. Still not on the roster officially. Technically hasn't signed his contract, his rookie contract yet. But I just thought it was really cool hearing Brian Dable in that video in the draft room say we're either getting a really fast burner at the wide receiver spot or we're getting our starting center. And they were hoping for their starting center, and they got it. So the Giants clearly do intend on making John Michael Schmitz their starter from day one, and I absolutely think that he will win that position and hopefully do really well there. I have really high hopes for him. But I do think another thing to take away, you kind of hinted at this, mentioning how in the past, like Devontae Smith, right, the Dave Gettleman era, teams trading up and taking players from him. It seems like the Giants thought that was happening to them here, but it wasn't. The Bears traded up, took Tyreek Stevenson. Maybe someone behind the Giants was looking at Stevenson, needed a corner, but obviously the Giants weren't going to be drafting corner there. But the Giants were really surprised. They thought that John Michael Schmitz was about to be off the board, but I will say it's very refreshing that the New York Giants aren't getting their draft picks stolen from them. And another way to look at it, we can extend it into the first round. They heard, if you watch the video, Joe Shane said that he heard Kansas City and Buffalo had some interest in Deonte Banks. He was afraid that they might jump in front. So what did he do? He traded up that one spot with Jacksonville, gave up the 4th round pick or whatever the Giants gave up, and he made sure that those two teams couldn't take Deonte Banks away from New York. So I think that there's just a real great awareness from Joe Shane here is what I'm getting from this. Is that there's an awareness that he has around the league. He knows what everybody's trying to do, and he knows what the Giants are trying to do, and he knows how to make sure that the Giants get to do what they want to do without all the competition from these other teams. And I think that's something that's really exciting. The Giants get their way now. They don't settle for their second option. They get their way. Even in the second round, they got John Michael Schmitz. In the third round, they made sure to trade up and go ahead and get Jalen Hyatt. And that's a whole nother aspect of this video that was really exciting. Brian Dable initiating the trade to get Jalen Hyatt in the third round, texting Sean McVay. What are your thoughts about that, Alex? Because I thought that was one of the coolest parts of this whole process, and in this video, seeing Dable start texting Sean McVay, and Joe Shane mentioned that they were waiting until the draft selection got far enough down where the Giants only had to give up a 4th round pick to move up. And as soon as that happened, Dable texted Rams head coach Sean McVay, made the trade. I thought that was super cool. Trader Dabes, really cool stuff there. What are your thoughts on Brian Dable making the trade?
I mean, look, the reality is that our GM and head coach are in lockstep. They're in synchrony. Like, they're in the same exact freaking boat. And in the past, we haven't seen that. There's a reason why we've been churning out head coaches over the past couple of years, because they've never been in line with our general manager, and they've always been trying to do something else, and they've always been disagreeing. They've always been wanting to do this or that. These two guys are in lockstep. And when you have guys like this in high-profile positions that understand the assignment and know what they're doing and strategize accordingly, things seem to go well. Things seem to get better instead of getting further apart. We're seeing that now. Like you said, the Giants aren't getting pushed around anymore. They're going out, they're getting their guys, and they're getting good football players, right? And, you look at the quotes, and he said that Jalen Hyatt was sticking out like a sore thumb. They wanted to make sure they got him, and they went and made a deal with the Rams to go get him. They didn't end up expending a ton of capital either to acquire a player of his caliber. He has boomer bust potential, right? And here's the thing. When you have a guy like Jalen Hyatt who's boomer bust, what makes him bust, right? You would say the most likely variable and the catalyst for making a player bust is bad coaching, right? Pause. But at the same time, you're looking at the boom potential. If you have good coaching, it makes it much more probable, I would say. So when you're actually trying to get the absolute value out of Jalen Hyatt, We have tremendous coaches to get it done. Brian Dable is going to do a great job getting him into a spot to maximize and expand upon his qualities. And the word I referenced earlier, speed. The two things that I expect Jalen Hyatt to dominate this year, he's going to attack the seams, he's going to attack the deeper portions of the field, and crossing routes. You cannot stop Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt running opposite crossing routes or underneath, you might, the high-low concept, Anthony, you talk about all the time. Those two guys, those crossing routes, so higher and the lower crossing routes, we're going to see a lot of those. We're going to see Daniel Jones reading that first option. If it's not there, he's going to hit the over. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for this offense to expand upon this skill set. Jalen Hyatt's got ridiculous game speed. If his hands get better, I think, honestly, he could be a better version of Darius Slayton. I think that's his ceiling. I think Darius Slayton, on a good day, is a good wide receiver, too. I think that on a great day, if Jalen Hyatt pans out, he could be a very high-end, if not a low-end wide receiver one. I think that's his ceiling personally. You may disagree, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because, there's really no wrong opinions right now. Anything could happen. But I do love the fact that he he's like a raw Darius Slayton in a way with the speed, but I think his route running is even better. And I think his hands, if he alleviates some of that concern, because he has dropped some passes in the past, I think that he could be a legitimate threat in this passing game for a very long time. And we got him in the third round. And that's the thing with the Giants in the past couple years. Our mid rounds have been an absolute graveyard of selections. You know what I mean? And it's not because they're not talented. It's because we had absolute crap coaching staffs. Now we have good coaches, and those mid round picks are going to start panning out a little bit more frequently. Last year we had very unfortunate luck because of all the injuries. Hopefully you get guys like Darian Beavers back. Hopefully Josh Azudu continues to develop. Daniel Bellinger's a legitimate starter. He was a fourth round pick. Hopefully Dane Belton ends up panning out. There are some really good players there that just need more time to build their profile and identity. But I think that the mid-round quality players that we did grab this year in terms of those late sixth-round picks, we had the Owens guy, Javarius Owens, Trey Hawkins, ridiculous athletes, a lot of potential, and then Hyatt, a third-round pick. He's going to be a good player for us. Objectively, he's going to do some good things for us. He has the speed. He's got the work ethic. Great guy. So, what are your thoughts on that? The fact that the Giants are starting to get players and coach them up to actually make an impact in the mid-rounds. You can't build a roster on first-round picks. It's not sustainable. What do you think about that? The quality of players we're bringing in the mid-rounds and how they're going to help kind of transform this team into a much more competent one long-term.
Listen, signing free agents doesn't win you championships. One thing does that, and that's drafting well. The New York Giants have been drafting better in recent years. I mean, even during Dave Gettleman's time, at least he was landed on his first-round picks. For a while, it seemed like maybe he wasn't going to be, but he did start to really hit on some of those early-round picks. But now we have a lot more confidence in what the Giants are doing in the middle rounds, and that's huge because you don't win football games, you don't win championships without hitting on some mid-round picks. We have the expectation now that Joshua Zito will one day be the starter at left guard because the Giants drafted him in the third round. The third round means starter for the New York Giants now, right? So when you're looking at it from that perspective with Jalen Hyatt, he's going to get a lot of playing time. He's going to be a starter. And I think with Hyatt in particular, Alex, it kind of wraps into something that you mentioned a few episodes ago, talking about not putting square pegs in round holes, right? The Giants, while Hyatt, yes, boom or bust, you could describe him that way. Limited skill set in some aspects because, listen, during his time at Tennessee, he never faced press coverage. Tennessee was really good at making sure that he was playing in the slot or was out of motion. He had another receiver lined up in front of him. He never had to go up against press coverage, and when he did, he struggled, right? So, but that's just because it's something he's never done. Now that he's got NFL coaching and now that he's going up against NFL talent, he's going to have to learn how to face press coverage, and Brian Dable is someone that I trust to develop him in that regard. I think that he will improve against press coverage now that he'll know what it's like to go up against it at this level. So I think that's something to add into that. But also, Brian Dable is so good at using players for their skill set, not asking them to do things that they can't do, not asking them to do things that they're not good at. He's good at getting players in the right position to make the right plays that match their skill set. And that's why Jalen Hyatt is such an exciting pick for the New York Giants and why I think that he will pan out for the team, because I trust in Brian Dable to put him on the field for very specific situations to make very specific plays. And those are big plays. You're going to see Hyatt deep downfield running a lot of routes. And not only that, his skill set, the reason why he won't be boom or bust necessarily for the New York Giants offense is because he's just going to open things up on the field. There was a lot of moments last season where the Giants didn't have enough speed, didn't have enough, receivers with quality talent to go downfield and make big time plays. And so everything would just kind of get congested into the middle of the field. But now with Hyatt stretching the field, just running 9 routes all game long, just going vertically downfield, the defense has to respect that. The safety has to cheat a little bit to his side. He has to take a few steps back before every snap. And that extra step back, that extra 6 yards that the cornerback or the safety lines up further, that's an extra few yards that Saquon Barkley has when he gets to the second level. That's an extra few yards of cushion that Isaiah Hodgins has when he breaks across the middle of the field on his deep crossing route. So it really will open up the Giants offense. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, there's no expectation that I have for Jalen Hyatt this year. I'm not going to say he should score 5 touchdowns. He should have 600 yards. I don't have those kind of expectations because, listen, he's a rookie. He's going to need to develop. He was a third-round pick, so you want to lower your expectations for that regard. But I do think he has an opportunity here to make a significant impact on the Giants' offense, whether or not he's even touching the football. And I think that's what the Giants were looking for. That's why they said, we can get a starter at center or we can get a lot of speed with Hyatt. And that speed is not just speed catching the football, running with the football. It's speed that opens up the offense and creates opportunities for other players. So not only am I confident in the Giants coaching staff to develop Jalen Hyatt, as you just mentioned, Alex, I'm just confident that they're going to put him in the right position to make plays, whether he's touching the football or not. And I think that's something to note here with the way that the Giants are building their offense and ultimately building their roster through these middle rounds. And I do kind of want to discuss Eric Gray as well. This is a player that I'm really, really excited about because, listen, 4th round, you don't expect there to be starters necessarily who could step in and make an immediate impact. And that's not what Eric Gray is going to be. Saquon Barkley is your starting running back, but Saquon Barkley was on the field for 80% of the New York Giants offensive snaps last year. That led all running backs in the NFL. And this is a guy who's had a significantly extensive injury history on the field for 80% of snaps at the running back spot. That was not sustainable for the Giants. You could see it towards the end of the season. There were moments where Saquon looked a little worn down. But now, with Eric Gray, a player who many analysts, many scouts believe could be a 3-down starter in the NFL, you're taking a lot of pressure off Saquon Barkley and hopefully creating a 2-headed monster in the backfield with Eric Gray being a very quality, capable rusher. And I'm really excited about that. So, Alex, what are your thoughts on that 4th-round pick? Everybody's talking about the Giants' first 3 picks, right? Deontay Banks, great pick. John Michael Schmitz, great pick. Jalen Hyatt, excellent pick. But they're not really talking too much about that 4th-round pick at Eric Gray. But in my opinion, I think it's on the same level as those other 3 picks in terms of the impact that it could have on the offense. So what are your thoughts on Eric Gray and what he could do for the Giants?
I mean, look, the Giants have to be logically preparing for Saquon Barkley not being here long term. I mean, I think that's just a smart thing to do. Drafting running backs in the mid to late rounds, traditionally, very good move because running backs are very disposable. You move on from running backs, you replace guys. I mean, look at Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs, just won a freaking Super Bowl with them and came out of nowhere. Was like an undrafted free agent, like a really late round pick. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, basically useless on that team now. So, not to say that Saquon's Clyde Edwards-Helaire because it's not true. But, Saquon Barkley right now with the contract situation unfolding, the Giants have to prepare for the worst case scenario, which is that he may end up leaving after this upcoming season. If they extend him, more the merrier. Now he has a really good backup to help take off the pressure. And the reason that Saquon Barkley is having this situation right now where nobody feels like they can trust him and invest because of his injury history would not be happening if the Giants had given him proper, supplementary play and talent around him in the past, right? Now you get yourself a really good tight end in Waller. You have a solid receiver core with a lot of talent, a lot of upside, and you go out and get a guy like Eric Gray who can come in and play all 3 downs. He can pass block. He can, run the football with some angst, and he has really good cutting qualities. And at first cut, get downhill, get north and south, and he can do some stuff for you in the running game. And I think that that's going to allow Saquon Barkley to take less touches, but also put more effort into the ones he does get. Right? When it's late game. It's 4th quarter. There's 2 minutes left. The Giants are running Saquon heavy. A lot of his production came in those 2 minutes. The last quarter, 4th quarter. You want Saquon to step it up, right? You cannot do that. Saquon is not going to be able to step up if he is already gassed. If you're leaning on Saquon for the first 3 quarters of the game, there's no way in hell that the fourth quarter is going to come around. He's going to be able to step it up and put in his best effort. If you give him supplementary play, let him take some breaks, give the ball to other players the first couple of quarters, and then the fourth quarter comes around, you need your star offensive playmaker to show up and do what you need. Saquon's going to have the energy, and he's not going to be injured. And then you can really get the value out of Saquon, those game-winning drives where he makes 6 guys miss and gets a first down on 3rd and long. Those touchdown runs where you're like, holy crap, this guy's a generational talent. Those moments don't happen if Saquon is not healthy. Those moments do not happen if Saquon is not, doesn't have the stamina to actually do it. So this process they're going through, adding more talent, bringing in more running back play, it's going to play right into Saquon's strengths. It's going to play right into maximizing his quality. And I think absolutely Eric Gray, very underrated draft pick for the Giants. And it's only going to make Saquon better because we don't have to lean on him, and the probability of injury decreases a lot when you have a guy that's going to take a lot of the slack off of your star running back.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. I completely agree with you. I think taking some of that slack off of Saquon Barkley is really important. He's been the superstar, the focal point of the New York Giants offense for his entire career, but he hasn't had much help in the rushing department. He hasn't really had a competent backup behind him to help take some of that pressure off of him. But taking some of that pressure off of Saquon Barkley will be huge. It will benefit everyone on the Giants offense. And again, I think that all of the moves that the Giants made this offseason really do benefit Saquon Barkley. He's got improved blocking from the center spot now, John Michael Schmitz. He's got a vertical threat on the outside in Jalen Hyatt, who should open things up for him at the second level. And then, of course, he also has a relief back in Eric Gray. So it's going to be really exciting to see what unfolds for the New York Giants offense this upcoming season. But one thing that we can all say for sure, we are very impressed and very excited by the New York Giants 2023 draft class. And those videos that the Giants posted on Giants Life and everything on YouTube, that really highlighted the synergy between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And if there's one reason for Giants fans to be hopeful and confident in the future of this team, it's those videos, and it's that synergy, that teamwork between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll is something that, and I saw a clip, this ties in, saw a clip from Nate Ebner, who was on the New York Giants as a special teams player. He said that every step that Joe Judge wanted to take, Dave Gettleman would want to take the opposite step, and that they were constantly butting heads during their time together with the Giants. And I thought that was really interesting, and it really put into perspective how refreshing it is to have that synergy between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, and how exciting that truly is for New York Giants fans. So that pretty much wraps this one up, but make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the New York Giants middle rounds of the draft and their process to land these players down below in the comment section. And again, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.